The decision by Gene Haas to not renew Guenther Steiner's contract has been met by shock across the sport. Steiner became a massive personality in the sport, and his contributions to Haas cannot be understated. But with results declining and the team unable to improve, change had to happen. But could the change be even bigger? Many are asking if Haas is looking to sell up while F1 teams are worth upwards of $1 billion. Today, I'll check out whether or not Gene Haas is looking to sell his team, and talk about the rest of the fallout from Guenther Steiner's shock exit. So, don't go anywhere. In case you hadn't heard this already, the Haas F1 team principal Guenther Steiner has left the team at the expiration of his contract. He'll be replaced as team principal by Io Komatsu, who was the team's director of engineering until his promotion. Steiner has been at the Haas team since they entered the sport in 2016, and while he didn't write the checks for the team, was considered its founder and leader. The team's performances had been poor for a number of years, and when asked by Lawrence Barretto why Steiner's contract had been allowed to expire, team owner Gene Haas said, "It came down to performance. Here we are in our 8th year. Over 160 races, we've never had a podium. The last couple of years, we've been 10th or 9th. I'm not sitting here saying it's Guenther's fault or anything like that, but it just seems like this was an appropriate time to make a change and try a different direction, because it doesn't seem like continuing with what we had is really going to work." Despite the team's poor results, one 8th place finish, 2 9ths and 2 10ths in the last 5 years, Guenther's exit has still come as a shock to many. And by the sounds of things, it was a shock to him as well. An unmissable interview is booked in for him this weekend at the Autosport International Show on Saturday, January 13th. How that interview goes will tell us a lot about how the relationship between Gene and Guenther is, and perhaps will give some more insight into what was happening behind the scenes at the team and why they had performed so badly. Sky F1's Craig Slater has been in contact with the team since Guenther has been let go, and on the Sky F1 podcast, revealed that Steiner has not yet been given the opportunity to say goodbye to his former colleagues. I learned about this at the weekend, but some people I've spoken to say they've known about it for a couple of weeks now. And when I did check in with the Haas team today, with people I speak to there, they've told me that Guenther Steiner found out about this toward the end of December. He hasn't had an opportunity to go and say his goodbyes at the factory. He's still in the UK at the moment, and that's interesting as well. But as far as I can glean, a surprise to him that he would not be getting his contract renewed. It is important to remember that this isn't Guenther being sacked from the Haas team. Like any F1 driver, Guenther's contract had an expiry date, and that was December 2023. With the team's performances not to the level that Gene Haas wanted, Steiner's contract was not renewed, just as any driver would not get a new contract if they didn't perform. Slater continued by saying, "People have been telling me, from sources inside the factory, that there'll be a lot of disappointment that Guenther has gone." And then there was a little bit of cottery picking up on what Crofty said there, that were maybe feeding the line that why is Guenther releasing a book and getting involved in a US comedy series and doing all this Netflix stuff when the team are flatlining, and flatlining at the bottom as well. Guenther was a huge personality in Formula 1. His diary of a year in Formula 1 as a team principal, Surviving to Drive, was released last year, and with his incredible charisma and personality, TV companies have been keen to get him on their channels. Sky F1's coverage regularly featured the Haas boss, which is surprising considering their place in the F1 hierarchy. In terms of interview time, David Cross said he was the 3rd most interviewed team principal after Christian Horner and Toto Wolff. That's before the Ferrari bosses. While anyone working in Formula 1 is allowed outside interests. Look at Lewis Hamilton's empire of extracurricular activities. Performances are what matter to the sport, and Haas, under Guenther's leadership, was not providing them. With the astronomical cost of running an F1 team and the current billion-dollar price tags being placed on them, many people have been asking if Gene Haas is looking to sell up. No one wants to be putting hundreds of millions of dollars of their own money into a team that isn't performing. Like Gene said, over 160 races and no podium is very disappointing for him. It's obvious from Gene's interview that he's frustrated with how the team have been doing, and despite being a billionaire himself, Gene doesn't have the kind of money that Lawrence Stroll at Aston Martin does. He can't afford to fund a massive new facility and bankroll the team to victory. With Michael Andretti still desperate to get into the sport, and Formula 1 and the FIA unable to agree on whether he should be allowed to enter as the 11th team on the grid or not, Haas selling to Andretti has naturally been raised as a possibility. However, Gene has been very clear that he wants to win in Formula 1 and is fully committed to finding a way to do that in the long term. "I didn't get into F1 to sell," says Haas. "I did it because I wanted to race." Guenther had the same perspective. "We're not here to cash out. We want to race and be competitive." If you look at the team, historically they have had a lot of good years and a lot of bad years. Surviving is one of the characteristics of getting better. As long as you can survive, you always have another year to prove your worthiness. This is a big change. Losing Guenther is going to cause the team to have to focus on other aspects. We'll hopefully come out better for it. The problem for Haas is that F1 is a money game for the most part. The team that can spend the most money generally wins. Before the budget cap, Mercedes spent roughly $500 million a year running their team, the most of anyone on the grid, and they won the Constructors' title 8 years running. While the budget cap has leveled the playing field somewhat, money is still a factor. Aston Martin and McLaren are both in the process of building brand new facilities that will outstrip everything in Formula 1, giving them an advantage on track. Doing that costs hundreds of millions of dollars though. Red Bull are starting a powertrain division to give them complete control over how their engine is designed. That will give them an advantage on track, but again, will cost hundreds of millions. Haas outsources a lot of their design work to Dallara. They use Ferrari's wind tunnel in Italy. They buy loads of parts off Ferrari as well, and they build their cars in England. When you're buying parts from other teams, outsourcing your design work, and shipping parts across Europe, things aren't going to be as efficient as they could be. Parts aren't going to be perfectly suited for your car. Even if it's only a fraction of a percentage of efficiency or performance lost due to mismatches, that is going to make a difference in Formula 1. If Haas had the money to spend to bring everything together and be a more independent team, there is no doubt that they could be more successful. Haas has the smallest budget on the grid, with the team using a combination of sponsorship money, prize money, and Gene Haas's own financial input to compete. Gene, though, doesn't believe the team's struggles are down to a lack of spending power relative to their rivals. There is a perception we spend a lot less money. We're usually within $10 million of the budget limit, he says. I just think we don't do a very good job of spending that money. A lot of teams have had previous investments in their infrastructure, buildings, equipment, and personnel. Our model was to outsource a lot of that. We spend a lot of money. We haven't exceeded the cap, but we're pretty darn close to it. I just don't think we're doing a very good job of spending it in the most efficient way. Gene may very well be right. Perhaps Guenther wasn't spending the team's budget in the best way possible. Gene is a very successful man and has been successful in other racing series. He isn't just another rich guy bankrolling an F1 team. So presumably, he has seen something that was going wrong under Guenther's watch and has decided to make a change. The problem is that even if Guenther was making mistakes, fixing those inefficiencies in the team's spending isn't going to earn Haas that podium that the team is missing. A podium might be the dream for Gene, but he's outlined what the team's real aim is. Being efficient at what we do is going to make sure we survive in this series. We're one of the longest surviving teams. Everyone else had the tendency to spend all their money in the first few years and then they go out of business. We survived for 8 years and we're not in a situation where we're going to go out of business. But I certainly want to be able to survive for the next 10 years. To Gene and the Haas's team's credit, they have survived. They've outlived every other F1 team that joined around the time they did and many before them. When a historic team like Williams fell and had to sell to outside investors, Haas persisted. While the temptation to sell might be there, Gene is in F1 to race, and that is what the team will continue to do for now. Are you surprised that Gene isn't taking the opportunity to cash in on the team with a sale to Andretti? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.